there's nothing more moving in an event when people come up to you and say, I love working with you guys as a brand. And quite often it's not you guys as a brand, it's you guys, which means that the people in the room from Symprove are doing their right job and they're putting off the right thing. And there's no disingenuousness there at all. It's like people are there for a reason. And then it just makes me emotional. Like that these people are here, we've helped them and they want to share their stories. So then that's the key thing for me, is like just let people share their stories as best they can.
Have you ever wondered why some brands grow exponentially, building legions of passionate fans that live and die by their logos, and some, well, don't? I do, all the time, and that's probably because I'm a massive brand nerd, but I believe there's a secret sauce at the core of every remarkable brand, a formula that sparks the growth of passionate communities of superfans, building a business and a reputation that will last for years to come. My name is Paul Archer, and I'm a specialist in brand advocacy and word of mouth, having consulted for hundreds of brands on a topic.
Hey, it's Verity here, your co-host of the Building Brand Advocacy podcast.
In this podcast, we tap into the greatest marketing minds in the world as they share the exact tactics and strategies used to build the world's greatest brands, dropping actionable insights every brand builder can apply.
We've got some incredible guests coming up, sharing insights and tips that can truly shift the marketing landscape. If you want to be the first to hear, make sure you hit that follow button. The more people following the show, the bigger and better we can make it. So if you're loving what you hear, don't forget to follow and spread the word. Thanks again for listening. It really means a lot. I hope you enjoy this next episode.
It's time to learn and build brand advocacy.
Hello and welcome to Building Brand Advocacy. Today I am so excited to have with me the head of PR, social and advocacy from Symprove. Welcome, Carol.
Hello, welcome.
Do you know what? I think you are one of the first people on the show to actually have advocacy in your job title. So I am super excited to dig in.
God, no pressure. Just like, is that the right reason? Should it be in there? Okay, yeah, no, fine, let's do it.
I wanted to, like I said, I want to really dig into advocacy. And I think me and you both know that advocacy is kind of a term that gets used maybe in the wrong way, just kind of gets used in so many different ways. So first of all, what does advocacy mean to you?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there are a few words that get bandied about all the time now. And I'd say advocacy and authenticity, genuine, are the ones that probably drive me demented.
Yeah.
Not demented, but in the overuse and the not quite correct use of the word. I mean, if you strip it back to, the definition of advocacy, which is public support for something, then that's always been at the core of Symprove throughout the whole funnel. And whether it's people using the product and wanting to share it. That's what it boils down to. But I think certain areas will use it as a trendy word and think they're doing the right thing when it might not be the thing that sits for their business. It doesn't matter. We don't all need to have advocacy at the core, because it makes kind of like almost like belittles when it's doing a true benefit.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it, I've been to, I did a post on it about how we're really diluting some of these keywords, even community. I think people think that followers are community, answering, even just answering like comments on Instagram and stuff is like how you're community building. And it's just, that's what I mean. It's just lost so much.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that it gets used, I'm trying to think the right way to say it, so as I said, it's like through all our funnel at Symprove, like anybody who recommends Symprove is an advocate, right? And has the potential to drive advocacy for Symprove. But I think what happens is it becomes a different thing in different areas. So then there's a confusion, which is probably why it's not in many people's job titles, because it's like, well, what does advocacy mean for each business is different. Do they just attribute it to the top voices that they work with? Well, for us, it doesn't really matter. Anybody is an advocate for us, whether it's a doctor recommending it to a dietitian she works with, Betty sharing her experience with Helen, or, a celebrity sharing it with another celebrity, content creator sharing it for us on socials. It's all everywhere. And I think not many other brands probably can do that in the same way.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it's in my title.
Yeah. How do you bring it to life?
In various ways. I mean, if you take advocacy on the internal side of Symprove, everybody in the office is passionate about what our product does. Like, we are very lucky. And Therefore, it comes to life there. So interviewing people, inevitably they say, I've used Symprove, I love it, it's brilliant. So you're right, okay, that's one tick in the interview process. And it stems from within. And we have an incredible customer care team who hear points of advocacy all day long. I get a lot of them, obviously, through PR and social.
Yeah.
But when that's coming into you, it's very hard not to continually embrace it and share it with everybody. So we have like customers message in with life-changing stories, and it just gives you a warm feeling, which is what public support, hence advocacy, is.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, it starts from within.
Yeah. And it is. And we are, you know, led by a founder who set up a product to help people. And when that continually comes in, and that's the messages you get back all the time, it just reassures you that advocacy is at the heart of business.
Yeah.
And we're not jumping on a bandwagon, you know.
Yeah. This has been
controversial.
around.
Yeah. It's been around in Symprove since the beginning. Yeah. That's what we do. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what is one practical way brands can educate their teams on the real value of advocacy?
So interestingly, I had a chat with an international influencer agency last week, and one thing he said to me, he said, oh, that's really forward thinking of you as a brand. And I was like, okay. And which really shocked me, I said, are you actually sure you mean that? And what he meant was, I said, oh, we always ask people who want to work with us, like, so if it's a content creator, doctor, dietitian, ambassador level person, that they try the product first. And I don't think many brands do that.
No. And
it's really fundamental to me and the team that people who work with us are genuine fans. I think the guy was shocked because he was like, not many brands do that. And it would be, okay, we'll gift it and can you post? We gift, if you post, you post. It's on you because it's such a personal product. And that might be the key differentiator, that we are a very different product than anything else. Not anything else out there, because we're in the health and wellness space. There's plenty of supplements out there. But it's not a dress, and it's not a lipstick, and it's not a quickly try it, see what you think, okay, we can work together. You've got to take time. So we have to be prepared to invest in that. But it was just the way he said it was forward thinking. And I went, oh, to me, it's not. It's just the way we've always operated. And it's kind of like guardians of the brand, really, that you're only going to work with genuine people.
Yeah. I suppose you're right with your space. Like, you do have to give them time to see how it works for them. But from a gifting point of view, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, some of the principles within advocacy, and it is about being generous, and whether that is with your, you know, your product when you can. I appreciate that it's not always possible for every brand to do it, but we do say, you know, get your products out there as much as possible.
But I don't know how you can expect a genuine, I know I said it's one of the words I don't particularly like, connection with people you work with without it. Because it's the classic, you know, you don't give to receive, like Christmas time. You know,
exactly.
But it will come back.
Yeah.
And it's a long game, really, particularly with our product, that it's not necessarily somebody we gifted a year ago might go quiet and then come back and go, actually, I loved it, try again. Customer might have a break and then realise that actually they want to be back on it. So it's just being sincere at the heart of what your gifting is as well.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not just being generous with the product, it's with your time, anything that you can possibly be generous, especially to those customers that give back to you as well. Like, you've got to keep. Yeah.
We have, like, our customer team are, you know, most like places you get a call centre, it's like, right, okay, right, off the phone now. There's been none of that. And I've been at Symprove for a while, and we can talk to a customer for 10, 15 minutes, don't bat an eyelid. If they want to ring and talk to us, that's fine. That's what we're there for. Because we are operating in a space where people do want to talk. People are a bit embarrassed sometimes to share their gut health conditions or problems, or just generally want to have a chat about it. And we don't differentiate between talking to Betty. I always reference Betty. She's like become a person in my life. Or Helen, or a doctor. It's like we've got time for everybody, because the product deserves it. And the person deserves that. Okay, so in your career, has there ever been a standout moment where you thought, this is exactly what advocacy should look like? So I think, for me, it still happens now. I think it's when people go above and beyond. So we've got many channels that we operate in with our advocates, so who they are. But I think it comes back to when you hear, oh, somebody told me about that. You know, you think, okay, that's it, it's done. My daughter messaged me from a flat she was staying in at New Year's Eve. Mum, it's all in the fridge here. You know, her friends just started dating again. She said, oh yeah, he heard about Symprove. And it's that, because it means it's doing its word of mouth job. And it's very, I mean, you know, occasionally it's like, oh, we saw it on telly, or we saw it in the paper, or we saw so-and-so reference it. But, you know, more often than not, it's like, oh yeah, my neighbour told me about that. And you kind of think we're covering all levels there. You know, whether it's we saw Alexandra talk about it on the telly, or, you know, Betty again told me that she got recommended it by her doctor. Yeah. You know, it's that. And that's just that's never going to go away. So it's not one thing. It's like just the groundswell of constant word of mouth recommendation. And we've been at events where I've been to lots of events with the founder. And you don't ever know what an event's going to turn into, like where you're on a panel talking about stuff. And Baz will genuinely be blown away by people who will come up to him and share their experience. And you think, you wouldn't get that in any other, you know, you wouldn't get that with a dress or a lipstick. You know, it's kind of, and then it just brings it back home as to what you're doing. Yeah. And why. Yeah.
That's so true. You're right, especially in the wellness space.
Yeah. And it is. And, you know, there's so much in the wellness space, right? And there's so many things out there. But I think, and you can get distracted by everything else going on and all the noise that other brands are making and competitors. But I think for us, there's such passion within the business at the heart of it, knowing that the product works for people, that it's backed by science, that just makes you think, okay, don't get distracted by the shiny objects out there who seem to be doing it differently. Yeah. You're actually the one who's got more people coming up to you saying, so-and-so recommended it to me. Yeah. And that's
I love that answer. You know, I had some friends round on Saturday and, you know, I was talking about you guys and another brand as well. And I just think it's, you know, I think...
Who was the other brand?
Shall I tell you?
Yeah, always interested.
Free Soul.
Oh, no, but that's interesting. I mean, different kind of audience demographic, but I think what they're doing is similar-ish in like building community and really kind of, you know, I mean, they're riding a wave at the moment, let's say. I'd quite like to be Free Soul at the moment, but, you know, hey ho. Yeah.
But you're right, it is different. But I think like it just, do you know what? I thought afterwards in the morning, I was like, I had my girls round and like just the way we were chatting about Symprove and Free Soul, you know, it was just, I suppose every brand would want to be a fly on the wall in those situations just to try
next time you're having your dinner, we'll invite us round and we'll just like mic you all up beforehand to see. Because it is that, like, we are quite lucky. Like we've had, like from when we started and with working with advocates in the, you know, social space, as it were, it was a long game, right? And it still is. But we now have like various communities everywhere. Like we've got a Facebook customer community, like supporters group, and it's just brilliant. And they just chat amongst themselves. They've got each other's back. If there's a difficult person in there, because inevitably there is, they'll all look after each other. And it's really warm. And it's kind of, you know, we're not quite at the sweaty Betty buzz level, but we'd love to be there. But it's people just helping each other out. And you kind of think that's what you want. And also it's giving people that space to talk about stuff like this. Like we recently did a campaign in the end of the year and we had ambassadors and customers talking on the sofa a bit like this with Susanna Constantine. And it was just really refreshing because everybody has a gut story, right? And everybody should feel they can share it comfortably and not be embarrassed about it. Whereas I think back in the early days when I was at Symprove, people would ring up and they'd talk for a long time, didn't have anywhere to go. But now there's so much more noise around gut health, knowing that it is okay. Yet people are still reluctant to talk about their gut health. And some people still don't get the connect between looking after your gut and every other part of your health, you know, and that's getting there more and more.
Yeah, I suppose you have to do a lot of educational content.
Yeah, and that's really tricky for us because I say tricky, it's not, because we've got some great healthcare professionals who will support us. So we are putting out the right content there and we're not ever going to go put anything out that's controversial. We probably won't jump on trends because we science backed. It's not that easy to do that. Diet, that's okay. Like I said before, it's the bridal magazines, different colour, different month. That's all it is. But I think we educate a lot around gut health and that's what we can do because we can't, the regs on supplements are so tight that we can't really just go out and say Symprove is not allowed. You know, it kind of, I mean, it'd make a cracking ad, but probably not suitable if we blanked out everything we'd like to say. So it's informing people so that then on their journey, they can find out various bits of information about gut health.
Yeah.
and know there's communities there to support them.
Yeah. Okay, so you've already started to touch on it there, but what are your go-to strategies for turning your loyal customers into vocal advocates?
So I think it would be, we give them time. So I think, as I said before, it's back to the gifting. It's like, let people try the product. We don't really bombard them. We're not, you must do this, you must review this, you must do that, because it has to come from them. It's just, we direct them to, if they've got any questions, so they can go to our Facebook community. DMs on Instagram are always alight with questions about it. And they ring customer, but we do direct them to Trustpilot as well, so they can see, because there's quite often nervousness about trying a new product, particularly if you're in the 1 in 5 bracket of people who have IBS, then you are nervous and you've tried things and this is another thing to try and it's meant to do this, but we can't tell you what it does because we're not allowed. So we will direct them and support them as best as we can. It's time, really.
Yeah.
And nurture those relationships, wherever they are.
And how do you, so I suppose once they are advocates, what are there any sort of tactical steps that you do to keep them organically advocates?
Yeah, I mean, we do so on our Facebook group, we have regular check-ins. If you broke it down into the different type of people we work with, so with our content creators, we're very connected to them directly as opposed to platform-led in terms of what they run for us. And it is always checking in. And, I keep banging on about the customer care team, but they're very good at remembering who they've spoken to. And I think it's just we employ passionate people who are good listeners, who want to hear more, want to share more, want to remember those little moments in people's lives so that if they do ring up, that's what they remember. Yeah. And it can be anybody. So it could be a customer, it could be a doctor we work with, it could be an ambassador or an influencer, it could be anybody, but it's just remembering that and keeping true to them.
Yeah. I love that.
I'm not the type of person who's a different person out of work, right? So I treat everybody the same. And I think most people, it's simply the same. It's not that you don't get special treatment, because you do, because we're very supportive, but we look after people the same way we'd want to be looked after.
Is that a value within the business?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's and we're open and honest, and we just want to support each other and know that at all times. So it's trying to not be protective over things, let people know about the relationships you've got going on and how you can build them, and lean on each other more and more to support the customers that we've got.
Well, it kind of leads me on to where I want to go to next in terms of because I think when you look at your brand network, you've mentioned customers, advocates, you've even mentioned obviously employees love the product. And I think now, the brand network is so much bigger than what people used to think it was. You know, we've moved away from just working with mega influencers and rely on them to kind of get the message out. And I think that's how it's really evolved over sort of the last 3 years, maybe. Where do you think it's heading next, especially in sort of the health and wellness space? As you said, it's getting noisier out there for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, and as a brand, vying for share of voice in that space, which is kind of let's get measured, what's your share of voice? I think it's crucial. You have to just, like I said before about getting distracted, just stay true to your own brand. Don't get distracted by the competition and own what you do. And we've I'd say over the past year, we've brought together various areas of advocacy in different formats. So might have brought affiliates into an event with creators, into an event with journalists. And what's just exciting to see is the passion for the product that's there. And, and the feedback we get from those, they're not quite community style events, but has just been really heartwarming. And you think, okay, this is what people want. They do want to be in touch with the brand, because you might get some agencies out there who lead you to believe that their talent don't want to talk to you. And if that's the case, then sorry, we don't want to talk to you. That's not true. It's kind of if you invest in them and look after them. And I think it's back to just don't overcomplicate it. It's remember you're dealing with people at the end of the day. And I think we've got tendency to go a bit, in the world of AI, a bit automatic about everything. And everything has a channel, everything has an ROI, everything has this. And it's we are dealing with people with guts. Yeah. And that's what we need to remember.
Yeah. And it's, we are shifting as consumers, it's it's not passive consumption anymore. We want to kind of, we want to be involved. We want to, sort of, we don't just, I suppose in the true sense of advocacy, we want to advocate with a brand now, not just for them.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, I think the key thing is going to be it's the channel diversification across advocacy that is the exciting point that you could look at. And I think, like, on that, we've had a few, like I mentioned that event before where it was a bit, everybody's doing events on social, right? Don't get me wrong, and they're brilliant, and they drive noise and they drive traffic and they drive interest. But I think there's nothing more moving in an event when people come up to you and say, I love working with you guys as a brand. And quite often it's not you guys as a brand, it's you guys, which means that the people in the room from Symprove are doing their right job and they're putting off the right thing. And there's no disingenuousness there at all. It's like people are there for a reason. And I been with Symprove for a while, and I still in the room like that, if I have to get up and do the intro talk, I still get excited, get nervous, obviously, because public speaking, nobody really likes that. And then it just makes me emotional, like that these people are here, we've helped them, and they want to share their stories. So then that's the key thing for me, is like, just let people share their stories as best they can. Now, with our supplement, they can't, but the people we work with tend to get creative around it and do the best they can.
Yeah. But you're kind of giving your narrative to someone else, right? You're allowing them to kind of tell your brand story in their way, if that makes sense.
I mean, we're not a dictatorial brand in terms of a brief. So every month there's options for people to do that will align to, this is in terms of specifically influencers that we're working with, content creators. And it's up to them what's going to work for their community. We don't know their community the way they do. Most of their communities have seen their use of Symprove, because that's generally the only reason we're working with them. And it has to be on them. So we give them options. We're not ever going to be a Sky Glass, other brands are available, but because we can't do that, because it's so different and so personal. So we've worked with, when we originally launched, like working with influencers, and then it's spread out to affiliates, member programs, customers recommending. We had 3 people. And it was a gamble. This was like early days. And I remember the CEO at the time being like, oh, Carol, okay. And I was like, that's just trust me. Let's have a go. I've worked these 3 people. I've picked specifically because I know they're massive fans. We still work with them now. Like, they're still in the crew. And I think they've been like 7 years working with us. And, don't get me wrong. They do get approached by the brands, but they won't do it. And it's not because of me. I mean, maybe a little bit of me. It'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? It's because of the product, and so it speaks for itself. And that's why we give them time to try it, and then it will evolve from there. So there's a phrase, we kind of say it's efficacy through advocacy, but it could be advocacy through efficacy. Either way it works. It's kind of, they're speaking about it because we have an efficacious product, and then they're advocates because it's been efficacious for them.
I love that.
Yeah, a lot of words there.
Yeah. You kind of, again, you touched on it slightly about measuring advocacy, and
bane of my life.
Yeah. How
I don't want to measure it ever. You ask anybody in our SLT, Carol doesn't like to measure it. But then I can tell you, it's just, I think the tricky thing is the advocacy is very mixed up with influencer world, isn't it? So I think there might be people who have an influencer role and they're called an advocacy thing, and it's not the same thing, But if you just took the measurement of advocacy is based on sentiment and sharing those key community moments, those key reviews you get that just for us just come in so regularly that it just keeps the efficacy through advocacy alive that we know. So it's not, there won't ever be, here's a target you've got to hit for advocacy. I mean, somebody somewhere will work one out for me, I'm sure, at some point, and I'll have to learn a formula, but it's not what I do, but I'll give it a go. Have you? Maybe we need to do that. But it's when you dig into the tracking of sentiment, right? Great idea. All the tools in the world out there to help you do it. Track engagement, great. All the tools in the world out there to do it. But everybody does engagement and sentiment different. So there is no one star or whatever you'd say to do it, because like for us, engagement is not just engagement on our content. It's when our voices or our customers share an experience somewhere, that we're there to back that up. So if there's then a follow-on question, we're there to support them. And that's why I think it's really tricky. You know, it's like sentiment generally is positive, but then you get one negative that could bring you down. But the negative comment might not then factor in the fact that you've responded to it and resolved it. So I think it's quite a complicated
system.
Yeah.
Hugely.
I'll get my head of insights on that. She can tell me how to get a brand advocacy score in the mix, or you could just send me yours later and I'll adapt it.
No, we'll definitely chat about the score. But I just know that I think in some way, like advocacy, there are ways, like you said, it can be measurable. But I think the biggest thing with advocacy is how scalable it is.
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting because it is definitely scalable in various areas. So we've got, I think healthcare professionals recommending us. We've got a member get member program. We've got affiliates. We've got influence, and then we've got ambassadors, right? And as well as we've got our internal crew you'll be recommending it to people you meet. I mean, I'm slightly cult-like, my husband said when I first started working there, but now he's an avid fan, so it works. You just persist. And I think to scale it is a challenge when you still need people to try it and know that they like it. I think it's not a simple put it out there and see what happens, because we don't want that, because we want to support people who are trying it. And that's the reason it took, a long time for the product to get to market, was because the founder was not just going to put it out there. I mean, lots of supplements do just get out there, made in a kitchen sink or something, but he wanted the science behind it. So we had the backing of scientists. And I think that makes the scaling thing tricky. And there are platforms out there and all that, and channel diversification will be key, but it will be a build for us in the right way.
Yeah, I think this is where people go wrong with advocacy, though, because we know there's brands out there. You guys are living by it. That it's not the short-term hacks. Yeah. And I think so many brands, they want to just turn it on overnight. It's not an overnight success, but you guys are living proof that when you treat it like a long-term strategy, it's not just I think also when we spoke before about this, I said it's annoying to, like I say, we try not to get distracted by competitors, but it's not even just competitors. It's like when people put asks out for brands they want to work, I'm like, come on, like think about how that reflects on your talent. Or have you tried the product? No. Have you got any interest in the product? No, I don't know who you are. Okay, brilliant. So no, I'm not going to work with you. And that filters through then. It kind of, it can affect everything, because just back to measuring and scaling, I think the one key area that we get excited about is engagement. And people might talk about engagement from like I said before, about what you're interacting with. But for us, from an internal point, it's there's nothing more powerful than when we've done an event and influencers have messaged us separately, whether it's a WhatsApp to say how they appreciated it, and then it's engaging back with them. Yeah. Or we send them a brief. Like I said, we like to give mixed brief, and they get excited and come back and said, I've got this great idea. Or they say, can you help me out? I've posted something, my DMs have lit up, I don't know what to answer. Or somebody's gone to the doctor and they've said, I don't know how to answer that question, can you help me out? So it's a plethora. I mean, I'd love to be able to map it out and measure it all, but at some point that will happen. But it is challenging. There's got to be a way in the future for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, there will be. And I think it's the hard thing, Symprove, we're growing and it's brilliant and it's dead exciting. So it's making sure you take stock of what you've got going, that's the good things, that you can keep going at the same time. It's parallel tracking on a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Let's look ahead a little bit again. So
that's exciting.
If you could predict one major shift in how brands approach advocacy and social media in the next few years, what do you think it would be?
So number one, I think 5 years is a mentally long time.
Yeah.
I can't even think about that. I can't even get to the end of the year. I think it's consider the crossover. So I think advocacy across the full funnel, don't really differentiate between your audiences in terms of don't treat them differently, is what I mean. I think I've said that a few times, that, a customer's as important as a sports star or whoever's using you. It doesn't really matter who you are. I think a lot will evolve within platform use this year, and it's kind of paid and organic work. You need to work in alliance across it. So you're singing the same thing. Corporate words. Singing from the same hymn sheet. I think that's where it's getting a bit blurred, like, between creative concepts that are shared for advocacy-based ideas. UGC content is not really the UGC content it was, if we're honest, because everybody could make money out of it. So
there's a thing between sort of like UGC and staged UGC now.
I just don't think UGC exists in the same way anymore. I mean, we do get comments in, and we do get people sharing without any impact, but it's not the UGC that the world expects to see. Like, the world expects to see. But then sometimes if you polish it too much, it's just not quite right either. It's that balance is going to be tricky, I think. But I think there'll be a bit of blurred lines.
Yeah.
I can't get to 5 years, I'm afraid. I've just got no idea.
No, I know. I sort of like when, that's why I kind of was like a few years, because 5 years is just, we don't even know what's going to happen in 90 days with TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for us, it will be, it's like, don't differentiate. All your voices, all your advocates have a voice. Don't focus on one area of them more than the other. And we've never done that. And I think it would just be, that will be our scaling secret, is like scaling all the different areas of advocacy within the business and focus on what we're doing and doing it more.
Just in terms of your role, so your PR, social and advocacy.
Rumour has it, yeah.
I mean, they're three pretty big,
yeah.
I mean, they're individual jobs, right?
Yeah.
Full time. So how does your day-to-day look? Or week to week?
I just generally wouldn't have a clue. Like, no. Do you know what? It's really exciting. I have to say, we're a really good team. We have a big marketing department, and my roles evolve from, I keep going back to when I was there. I got to sound like I have 60 odd. And it grew, and it's natural that these areas sit together, but we have a lot of crossover with other teams. We've got really strong people leading the way on PR, and also PR crosses over into the influencer stuff that we do, into advocacy, crosses over into the social. So they merge nicely, but no week is the same. And I quite like that. For me, it allows my creative brain to just have fun at work and kind of share the messages and just like push them into whichever relevant one I pick that day. Yeah,
that's so true. Because I suppose there's no kind of like 50% of my time is spent on this, and
no.
It's all.
It probably needs to be. I think my kind of bosses would say, right, you need to kind of like focus on that project that you meant to have been done a while ago. I'm like, I can't do that. I want to get involved in that instead. But,
there's too many things going on in our industry.
There's just a lot of crossover. I think that's the thing, and it's sort of. And it's a bit back to what I said before about paid and organic, blurring lines and crossover. And I think with so many brands using recognisable faces, that's where the blur's tricky. And I think for me, that's where the focus needs to be on. It's like retaining advocates is a key thing for me, is like not letting them be distracted by bigger bucks the bigger brands have. But generally that doesn't happen with us.
I wanted to ask, is something around getting more like advocacy in job titles? Like why is it not?
No, it's interesting because here's the thing, right? So if I was looking for a job, let's just say, advocacy means different things to so many different people. And I think it's come about in Symprove because it covers those various areas. So, customers, doctors, so it makes sense to bring it all together. Whereas there aren't many other brands that would have that. If they're bigger, they're not going to have somebody that could sit across all those areas. So I think it will be tricky. And I think it's tricky to remember that at the core of an advocacy role is the ability to build relationships. I mean, it's not a hard skill. It's an epic skill, apparently. And I think that's why it's probably not put in titles, because it's, then what are you going to write in a job description? In the world we're in, people like really clear definitions of things. Whereas I'm quite like the fluid definition, like I was never thinking about how can I change my job title to not be so wordy. Like you hear about other companies, like I remember somebody at a creative agency I worked with called Head of Special Ops, and I thought, I love that, that'd be brilliant. But it's not, is it? It's a bit... and then I thought, advocacy just covers a lot of the stuff we do. So it's like, I don't know how you get it into more places, because lots of other brands are very either performance driven, so then it is an influencer one. So they're very going to be data. And then that advocacy wouldn't quite sit with that data element, because I don't know how much of a relationship you're building with the people you're working with. Whereas, I mean, there are brands out there that it would work with, but I'm just not sure how it could evolve. But maybe if you've got your brand score, your brand advocacy score, that'll be it. filter out from there.
Hopefully.
That's how, and I think brands should be looking at that, because it's important that your brand is being recommended by people who are genuine fans, which is true advocacy. It's probably a more blur with the PR world than with, just blurring with the social world as well. Yeah. It's just a blur.
Carol, what do you think brands get wrong when it comes to building brand advocacy?
Oh no, you see, this is the one that gets my goat. They're not the question itself. I think I've posted a few times on a certain platform. I see so many people posting, asking, or I've got new creators, they'd be great to work with you, or I've got a campaign, hit me up with your creators. And it's just lazy, right? And I think you don't get genuine advocates for your brand through being lazy. It's a slippery slope, which will affect the brand eventually, because I think the one thing I'm really proud of our team and the business is that anybody can talk to most of our agencies we work with, and they'll know who they are, and they'll know what's going on, and they'll know who we're working with via that agency. And it's just really key. And those relationships then make that it's much easier for us to go back to, like, there's an agency we work with, and we've been able to go back to them last minute and say, look, we really need this help. Can you do it? And it does. It's not a problem. And they've also been able to come to us and say, look, we've got this great person, because they know what we're looking for now. So I think it's the laziness, people not putting the time in to really find out about them. And even when you look at content creators, right, it's finding out what makes their communities tick. Don't presume what you think makes people tick is what makes their community tick. And it is just back to people being lazy.
No, I 100%. And I love that answer. I don't think we've had being
Obviously,
lazy on it. But it's so true. We say it here, like, there's no shortcuts to this. And like I said, like, people do, it is lazy.
Yeah. It's even down to, like, there are God knows how many platforms out there, right, that could help you find voices, find people to work with. But you can't just do that. Well, we can't. But even if I was working for a fashion outlet, I'd still want to do due diligence on that. Don't take the lazy option, because you will find some gems, and I think it is. Yeah, it's a big bugbear of mine. Yeah. Like, every time I see a post saying, oh, I got a great new whatever. I have to restrict myself from posting a lot of the time. I'll probably be banned.
So she does post on LinkedIn if you want to see those rants.
Yeah. Go for a rant.
Carol, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much. I love digging into the world of advocacy.
Thank you.
That was another episode of Building Brand Advocacy, the world's top brand building podcast. To find out more about building brand advocacy and how this podcast is part of a bigger plan for our brand building cookbook, then make sure to search for Building Brand Advocacy in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are found, and make sure that you click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks to Duel for sponsoring. To find out more, go to www.duel.tech, that's duel.tech. And on behalf of the team here at Building Brand Advocacy, thanks for listening.